Don't ask Mom.
Well, you know, everybody has their own way of approaching the banjo and the music we play on it, and I think there are a lot of different ways that are right to approach it. You know, people can get if the results are nice, if the music is good to listen to, then well, however means they got there is okay. It seems to me. A lot of people these days learn from tablature. I feel that the thing about the tablature is that it's telling you one way to do something, and it gives you the idea that if you don't do it that way, then it won't be right. And that's not true either. There's more than one right way to play something. There's lots of right ways. And I always think of the banjo as more of an improvised instrument anyway. The record always comes out with the same break, but the person that played that break on the record probably will do it a different way the next time, and I might not even remember how it went on the record. So there's a difference in that learning something from tablature and feeling confined to the tablature and have to play certain notes or else, and then the way that the guy on the record actually approaches it, where he's sort of winging it or improvising, and maybe a different take that day was a whole different break. And of course, the way it is with the tablature is it doesn't even get made until after the record. There's, okay, so there's certainly a lot of tablature out there, and if I write some tablature stuff on the board, it's not really to give you a lot more tablature to have to feel like you had to learn or something. More like to demonstrate an idea. When you listen to a record, things you may not know what key something is in, or what in other words, what chords are actually being used to play. The music can still make sense to you by ear, and so what I'm going to try to do today is outline to me a kind of a structure that goes on in music, and in any key or any piece of music that you hear, some of this stuff is in there, and it's helped me to look into that side of it and realize things about the way music works in general, not about one specific tune or how you play this break or what that lick is in there. It's more like the overall thing about what's going on in thousands of tunes instead of just one particular tune. And I'll play some too, but I mean, I really feel like a lot of this is so important to me. I hope it could be important to you, and time is limited today, and so I'd like to get right into some of the deep water. From before we could even read or write, we heard music, and probably remember hearing Happy Birthday and other tunes when we were little. And we have the sound of what it means to be in a key or play in a scale. We have that built into our minds at a young age. And well, if I look at this as the central note of the banjo, not only its middle string, but the key that you're talking about. And this is the note, and this is a chord. There's got to be a scale that goes along with that. And I mean by that the do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do kind of scale. And if we travel along one string, we'll find this magic spot in the middle of the string, the octave, where the harmonic is at the 12th fret. That means that everything repeats from there on up the second time. So our scale is in that space. And those are all the notes there are, but we don't use them all from a scale. And if you start looking around for them, no, that's not quite right. No, that's, so far so good. Is that okay? Is that all right or not? No. out of it, but let me make our acquaintance of these things by ear first, and then later, because the numbers will mean something, other than look at numbers on a page and try to imagine what it sounds like. First thing, if you break that into two equal parts, you'll find that it lays out like that on the third string and the first string. You can see that both the top and the bottom of the scale have the same shape to them. And if you're a mandolin player, you realize that those are the bottom two strings of the mandolin. And so you're familiar with playing of a scale like that on the mandolin. Now, if the scale is raw material and it's just a set of notes. It isn't music really. You have to transform it by bouncing around in those scales up and down, and also by playing something in a rhythmic way. Rhythm is a real important part of the musical thing, I think, especially in bluegrass and old time where dances was mainly the rhythmic foundation. So if I play that scale or start out playing it in a rhythmic way, let me just go up that far, do, re, mi, fa, sol, then out of there you can hear jumping out a chord. Because I'm playing with emphasis on certain notes, and that chord comes leaping out of there. Kinds of runs. All the notes that are on the beat are the chords. So the guitar player is playing those notes in the chords on the beat, and I can play a melody. Moving around like that, and it'll fit in great with those chords. Well, that seems pretty obvious. You play a G chord and a G scale, and you get something that works in G. What's not so obvious is the way it works for all of the chords and all the sounds coming out of the scale. If I start on the do, re, mi, fa, sol, then I get that first chord built on the first note of the scale. Let's call that the 1 chord. If I start on re, you can call me Ray, then I take every other note from there, re, mi, fa, sol, la, and I have the whole other chord, A minor. Now the fingers are going to the same place because it's the same scale. So here's G, and here's A minor. You see, my fingers have never left my hand. They're still in the same frets there, G and A minor. Dancing on the other foot. See, this foot says do, but I'm still using the re and the fa and the la in there, except they're on the offbeats, the upbeats. And when I make them the downbeats, then I'll hear that other chord. So right out of this position, I can get the G or the A minor, with depending on which, rhythmically, which foot I'm dancing on. Donna, come in. There's still a few chairs. That chord, A minor, is built on the second note of the scale, re, or in this case an A. So it's an A minor. Now coming out of there, it's the 2 chord. The second chord, most people would call it, the musicians would call it the 2 chord. The 3 chord is built out of the third note. I'm just going up and down in the same old G scale, which means my fingers are going to the same places. And I don't have to use melodic style. I can play this in a single string style. It's not the technique involved, it's the notes you hear that we're talking about here. And if I start on that third note, Mi, that's Mi, Fa, Sol, La, Ti, and it gives me the 3 chord. So I'm going to find a family of chords coming out of the scale. A chord for every note in there. And so for the first chord, the 2, hear them in there. Then the D, that D chord using the G scale. I'm just starting on Sol. Mi, Fa, Sol, and I go from Sol up to Sol in the G scale. Sol, La, Ti, Do, Re, Mi, Fa, Sol. I'm going to take every other note of there, just like I was doing with the, there I get the 5 chord. Now for the 6th note, which is La, I just start on the La, and going to take every other note up from there. La, Ti, Do, Re, Mi. E minor chord, using the same old G scale. And the last chord has to start on the T, Do, and it would go up and down from there by an octave. You hear that kind of, that's the 7th chord, or the 7th chord in the scale. So, also those chords, let me just look briefly at what happens when you use the rhythmic, what's called the rhythm method, to get one more note up there, past the 3 notes that we stopped at this time. We went to the, which is the 1, 3, and 5, the 1st, 3rd, and 5th notes in the scale, Do, Mi, Sol. We've got 4 strings here, so very often what happens is you make a duplicate of the 1st note to finish the chord. So there's Do, Mi, Sol, and so that family of chords in those 4 string positions. But in a way, I've always got 2 copies of the same note in those kind of chords. That's what you need mostly for bluegrass and old-time music, but in popular music or jazz, where there's more chord activity, more advanced chords, well, they're making the same way exactly. So in other words, if I start on the Do, Mi, Sol, and let the rhythm choose the next note, then I'm hearing that note on a strung beat. And that's the chord. Use chords that are seem more advanced to the ear, but they're made in the same way as our 3-note chords. Or I can go for, that's 4 notes in this one. Let's try for 5 notes. That's a major 9th chord. Then here's the 2nd chord, A minor. Go for another note in there, 1, 3, 5, 7, A minor 7. I love that 9th. 1, 3, 5, 7, 9. So these are they're made in exactly the same way. You start up going up in the scale, and the rhythm will land on the notes you need, and you take 3 or 4 or 5 depending on how complicated you want that sound to be. We're here to get into bluegrass music, so I'm not going to follow that train of thought too heavily about those more advanced chords. But here's what I want to show you about this family of chords we got here on 3 strings. Maybe some of you are interested in single string playing. Here's an idea that might help a lot. This is the kind of thing where I think I can give you an idea. If you understand the concept, then it will provide you with things to work on and study for a year, maybe more. And so try to dig what I'm getting at here and carry this home with you. It's not like a tablature or a lick, but it's a place where all kinds of licks and notes are to be found. It's a real simple idea. You take these chords, and I'll write them down if you want, but I think we found them by ear. We just took the scale, and then those chords are made starting at each note in its time and going up every other note. Do, mi, sol. And that's what you get. And the second chord, you must start on re, mi, fa, sol, la, re, fa, la. And then we got mi, sol, ti. Try talking like that sometime. Shutting off every other word. Anyway, so we have this family of chords. Look how this works for single string. You take any 2 positions that are neighbors next to each other, like this position and this one. And then you use a note from each chord. You have the do, mi, sol in this one, and the re, fa, la in this one. So between the 2, you got do, re, mi, fa, sol, la. Half of the scale or better. I'm lifting the whole position here to demonstrate the idea, but you don't need to do it that way. Or, don't make it hard for yourself. Okay, now, the other thing is, that's a G chord coming out of there, and I'm using these 2 positions, a G and an A minor. Well, I can also get that A minor sound. Same kind of thing. I was doing that up here before. Same thing exactly. Now here's the idea. Take this chord and the next one as its neighbor and get single string stuff between those 2 positions. See how I'm using a note from each position. And I can make that sound like the A minor. Or I can make that sound like the B minor. Same kind of position. Next 2 positions are this B minor and the C. So use these 2 positions for single string. There's the B minor sound. And here's the C sound. See how I can hold that B minor shape and then play the C, play a lick in C. So the next 2 positions are C and D. So I have a... Or I can make D sounds there too, same place. I don't play single string stuff very well. And then this next 2 positions, see the idea is here you take those series of chords and then you look for neighbors, any 2 chords that are next to each other. And then you get your single string work between getting a note out of one of the positions and a note out of the neighboring position. And here's one, that's the 5, and here's the 6. So between the neighbors 5 and 6, I can get, or I can get the other sound. another question. I'm talking about the notes that are coming out, not the way you get them. And then between those, or between this and this, you get. And or this. So you can work up through all those chords. Then when you get feeling comfortable with that, what you do is you take all those chords and you make them on the inside string. So then you have a whole extra set of exercises to work with down here. See, then you work for. So you this kind of learning, you've got to figure out what it is you want to know, and then figure out a way to learn it, and then learn it, and then, I mean, it's a lot more responsibility than it is just to open a tab book and learn a new tune. But you should be getting a lot more stuff out that will work on hundreds of tunes. And okay, now I'm going to try to show you a way of using these positions here. I'm going to take I'm going to look at a couple of different rolls, and one, well, I'd like to start with it. The middle, index, middle, and thumb on the first string on the middle finger, then index, middle again, and then thumb. Notice that what we're getting is a steady rhythmic feeling out of the first string. Tapping away on the first string. So I'm going to take those chords we had, and I don't need the third string note, let me just play the top two strings. And I'll do 4 notes on each position. Trying everything I can think of, making loops and runs up and down. Now, once I'm comfortable with that idea of moving up and down 2 sounds that come in the scale, whatever. Now, I find that every one of those positions I'm in has neighbors up and down. In this position here, it has one neighbor down and one neighbor up. So next I'm going to go through this thing, instead of going right away to the next place, I'm going to borrow a note out of the next position up. I'm just trying all of those combinations. Maybe I can borrow one out of the next note out of the next position down. How about if I use the notes up and down? I'm going to move the index finger in now to the 3rd string instead of, and there I'll play it on for a new pair of two notes. I like the sounds of those. They're just take those full positions, and it's the third and first string out of there. So I've got, and you can hear the scale after. Now I'll try the next note down, hear a little grandfather's clock in there. So, in a way, if you try all the possibilities, then you're going to run into ideas and tunes that people have already played. Or if you're not, you're writing your own tunes. In a way, this is kind of using a roll-oriented approach where I can get this roll going and get it on automatic pilot and then sort of improvise by moving through sounds on the neck. And I think that's fine. Let me show you another roll. Maybe you're familiar with it already. If I could write little numbers down to the right of each one of these, maybe this is an E. If you're taking notes, you might want to do this. If I write a little number down there, it just means the string I'd be playing on. So that's the first string and the second, although sometimes we're using this on the third string, remember, second or third. And then middle on the first again, thumb on the fifth, and the same to that part. Well, this, maybe you recognize already, it's the Foggy Mountain Breakdown lick. There, I'm playing the index on the second string, middle finger on the first, then the thumb comes down to the second string, middle on the first again. Now the thumb plays at the fifth, on the fifth string, then I've got the second, first, and fifth again. If these little numbers make sense as to what string I'm actually playing with those fingers. So I've got index, middle, then thumb, middle, and then the last four notes from the index, middle, thumb. Most people that learn that, well, they want to go, and that's fine too, but that may be all they ever get out of that lick. What I'm saying is you take that and combine it with these positions up the neck, and we'll have this kind of thing. Here's the Foggy Mountain Breakdown feeling in the right hand. Now I was doing all 8 notes, the whole lick through at one hand position. But I don't have to stay there all that time. You can move see, I'm moving around through those chord sounds. Let me try borrowing notes out of the next highest position. Or the next lowest position. And so then it's really to me, I get a lot of fun or just loosening up with this kind of thing and going up and down through sounds. Not we're playing a particular tune, just hearing sounds and imagining how they could be useful in some of the tunes that I might have to play. seeing if I stumble onto a tune by accident. If I do, I might just stop the practicing on that stuff for a while and play that tune, or get into one tune and try to apply the stuff that led me to that tune. I think it's important to try to work on some stuff that works in music in general, and it isn't just working on one tune and one corner of one tune. Try to get a picture of music in a bigger sense, or learn things, just like, I mean, you use those in hundreds of tunes. Well, there's other musical ideas that work in all those hundreds of tunes too. Is this something you think is interesting to you? Is this what you wanted or expected, or? Okay, I mean, I don't want to be disappointing anybody either, you know.
Well, how would you apply that then to a tune? How would you build a break around something like that?
Well, okay, that's a real good question. I think you would have to say that there's different ways to approach a break. I mean, the melody, if it's a song with words, then the words and melody are important to the uniqueness of that thing. And so if it's a vocal, then I try to play through using, voicing the melody. But the melody, 99% of the time, is coming out of that scale. So if I'm familiar with how to move in that scale, then I'll be able to follow melodies even that I haven't heard a whole lot before. And so that's the first step in working with new material, or even old familiar stuff, or stuff that I have in my head and I'm trying to find a way to get it out to play. I have to sort of hear it inside a key setting, a scale, and then sort of figure out where I need to start in that scale to move up and down through the do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, to make it sound right. In other words, some songs start on the key note itself, the G in this case. I'm not a singer, but there's a cabin in the pines and in the Caroline. I got a big voice after last night, and that's the cabin in the pine. There's that note, but that begins on a different note, or Goodbye Old Pal begins on that note. Well, those are the three notes of the main chord of that scale, and so if you have an idea of what note a song will start on, then you move up and down the scale, you find the melody. And if you're moving along the neck like this, instead of moving across inside a chord, you can go and get a melody that way. You can get the same melody by moving along the neck. And I think this idea encourages more of an acquaintance with the neck along its length. Also, when you have you're moving around in the scale like that. Now, if you want to go to another key, let's suppose you want to play in D. All you have to do is find out where that